It's a tale as old as time. A film is successful, producers' eyes light up with little green dollar signs, and a franchise is planned. The concept of A Nightmare on Elm Street would seem, and has of course proven to be, ideal for a series of films. With such a great concept and really an intense villain that audiences really responded to with the first film, so there had to be a follow up to Wes Craven's film. There were so many areas that could be explored, limitless creative possibilities that could come with a sequel. And what we got was A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. If the first film was the birth of a series, then this second entry would be its infancy, still stumbling around a little bit and tipping over before it could stand on its own 2 feet. And that's fine. Keep in mind, this is something that was rushed into production at an alarming speed. They didn't quite know exactly what they had on their hands. They knew they had something scary, they knew they had a great villain with Freddy, and they worked with that. All things considered, I guess, they did the best they could. Though when we view the series as a whole, this isn't really the most well-regarded of the sequels. People recognize it has its problems, and it's pretty much regarded as the gay one. Yes, this is the one with all the homosexual allegory. Everybody knows that, acknowledges that, and makes fun of that. And I have to plead guilty myself. I did a review of the movie about 4 years ago, and I said all the things that you would expect someone to say of it. I look back on it now, and I don't know, I kind of feel like a tool. Like, people really do focus on that aspect of it a great deal. Almost to the point of the way you see A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 and what you have to say about it says more about you than it says about the movie, you know? You would think we could all stop obsessing about the gay stuff. It seems almost like a form of projection, doesn't it? We have a tendency to sometimes focus on things too much and call attention to things. That's kind of telling. And you may say things without even really thinking about what you're saying, and it's like this subconscious revelation of your own sexual insecurities. So, I've thought about my review from all that time ago. Maybe I was just being too hard on it. Maybe I was being too anal in my review. Maybe I was just stroking my ego as a reviewer. Maybe I should just suck it up, and I know it's a hard movie to swallow, but there's some good here. People say it belongs on the bottom. Maybe it deserves to be a top. Yes, there's gay stuff, but let's just get over it. Is it really that big of a deal? But okay, let's talk about the gay stuff in a second. So the movie, it takes place sometime after the first film, 5 years I think, and a new family has moved into 1428 Elm Street, Nancy's old house. And it's a typical kind of actually haunted house premise that we see a lot, where the cheapskate dad, this one played by Clu Gallagher, in a special appearance, who gets a great deal on the house because some terrible things once happened there. We don't know exactly what happened with Nancy. At least we wouldn't get an idea until the next film, Part 3, came out. But all we can say is Nancy doesn't live here anymore. The new protagonist is Jesse, an insecure teen, just trying to fit in with the new town, new home, new school. Things get a little weird once he starts having dreams about Freddy, who wants to take over his body and have Jesse kill for him. It's definitely different. The concept of Freddy killing kids in their dreams is dropped here, which is a shame because that whole concept was a large appeal of the first movie. And that's what made it stand out so much. And that's how it took advantage of certain psychological aspects that you don't see in the typical horror, slasher, let's kill a bunch of teenagers kind of movie. So I don't think they quite got it right with this one. They made it more of a possession film with even sort of a werewolf vibe kind of to it. And I don't know, they worked in Freddy as best they could, but it feels off. And as a horror movie, it doesn't really meet the kind of standard that you could hope for. I've been through this all before, but it bears repeating. Exploding parakeets are not scary. Toasters that catch on fire for no reason that are unplugged, not scary. Melting lamps and records, not scary. The gym teacher having all those balls fly at his face and killing him, not scary. I mean, come on. It's just full of all this goofy stuff like that. Aside from the barely ambiguous tale of a young man dealing with his homosexuality, it just all comes off as kind of funny. And it's the silly attempts at scares that I would hold into more offense in the long run. Because though we all like to make fun of it, the whole aspect of this kid struggling with his sexuality is what ultimately at least makes it a little more interesting. The first film dealt with the teenage psyche, angst, and insecurity, and certainly so does this one, but in a different way, specifically dealing with the main character's sexual identity. This is the psychosexual nightmare, and that's kind of interesting. I mean, it's not entirely out of place. You have this character who is struggling with adolescence, has the parents that are tough on him, has the normal insecurities a normal teenager would have, and this is exasperated by Freddy Krueger fucking showing up and messing with his head, trying to take over his body. So under this thinly, and I have to stress, thinly veiled horror tale, there is a story here about a young kid in middle America confronting his own demons and his own identity, more specifically his sexual preference, if you'll read into it that way. And it's hard not to. And it is this nightmarish look at the struggles of coming out. What's expected out of this messed up kid? What his parents are thinking about him. They think he's crazy, needs help. He has this would-be girlfriend trying to help him, trying to understand him. And even that portion with her, with the Lisa character, it's probably an interesting and familiar role of a lot of girls out there who have been there, been in that situation. So the female lead, I think, gets a fair say in the story, and all that's kind of interesting. Again, it's a point of ridicule, mostly just because I think of the execution. But it's not a bad angle for this kind of a movie. Not bad at all. And this is the mid-'80s, and it's not like gays really had a voice in Hollywood. So here's this gay movie, this gay horror film, hiding in plain sight, with the screenwriters probably laughing their ass off that the studio rushed this into production, went out and made it, without even realizing the actual message behind it. So maybe in its own kind of way, this was a progressive film. Maybe. Maybe there's some value to take from it in that sense, and that's okay. That's what the nightmare films are about, right? The fears of youth. So it's not entirely out of place. They just didn't get some of the key ingredients right. Moving past that, though, let's talk about Freddy. He's ultimately why anyone's seeing the movie anyway. I think he's serviced well enough here. He's still a dark and menacing character, not quite the humorous version that he's evolved into. So that's good, and he's not just dark in attitude, but kept in the dark so we don't quite get a very good look at him. And when we do, I think he does have a nice visage. It's different from the last film, since apparently the original makeup cast and design had been discarded or stolen, so they started this new makeup design for Freddy from scratch, and it looks pretty good. Kevin Yeager, who of course later went on to design the Chucky doll from Child's Play, he did Freddy's makeup design for this film, kind of with the idea in mind that Freddy was this male witch of sorts, and I think that comes across nicely in what we see. And I think the makeup suits Robert Englund well. And by the way, if we can give this movie any credit whatsoever, the studio at least had the good sense to keep Robert Englund in the role. There was a point early in production where Englund's legacy was in jeopardy. They didn't want to pay him as much money as he wanted, something like that. And they just kind of thought, let's get any schmuck, put him in some Freddy makeup, and that'll be fine. No. Big mistake. And I think it's actually in the shower scene of the film, where the coach is killed, where you can see the other actor, and you can totally tell the difference. You can tell something's not right here. Something's a little off. So at least they did have the sense to keep Robert Englund on, because he's not just another guy in the mask. He's not interchangeable. He brings a specific type of personality to the work. He gives a considerately crafted performance. Englund's the man. There's good reason why we praise him the way we do. And despite the movie's flaws, to Englund's credit, he is as good as he's ever been as Freddy. And the departure in the concept from the first film at least gives him some different stuff to work with. When there are scenes, particularly near the end, where he's taken over Jesse's body completely, he does have to communicate that Jesse is in there fighting against him, trying to take back control. So he emotes these expressions that we wouldn't usually see Freddy emote, because technically that's Jesse. And I think Englund does a very good job of that, and maybe doesn't get enough recognition for those scenes. And from a standpoint of the Freddy character, sure, you can read into it a little bit. He was this child murderer, but he's dead now. He's a ghost. He's a spirit. He haunts the dreams of the kids. The Krueger character always has been about this resentment of youth and wanting to snuff them out, kill them good. But his hatred could only come from the fact that he covets them in some way, and covets what they represent, and he perhaps longs for a mortal existence once more. Even though he has this incredible ability to enter their dreams, to do whatever he wants, he's still not, and never will be, human. So, since somehow, in this movie, he has the ability to possess a human body, then what a better victim for this? And what better prey to intimidate and manipulate and take over than a teenage boy like Jesse, who's uncomfortable in his own body? Though it's not the most loved entry, it does have that very memorable and iconic moment where he's out in the real world, standing in front of the fire, in front of the Elm Street kids at the pool party, invoking this gesture over them, almost like a blessing, saying, "You're all my children now." And he has them. They're all in front of them. This is no dream. We've all had dreams where we wake up from and we wish they were real, so maybe the dreams can feel the same way. I don't know. Bottom line with this movie, it has problems. That's undeniable. There are a lot of goofy things to this movie, and there are just way too many scares that don't work and come off as comedic. I don't think Jesse's that compelling of a character either. I understand what they were going for. It's a male lead in a horror movie. It's doing something against the curve. It's this gay allegory. He's obviously going to be more feminine that way. He's dealing with his stuff, but they maybe made him too feminine and too weak, to the point we find no real kind of strength in him. And we have no reason to cheer this character on one way or the other. And the strong character, if coming from anywhere, is in the female character in Lisa. And she defeats Freddy with the power of love. I don't know. I don't know what's up with that. And also, what was up with the dogs? Those, the ones with the human faces, like out of the 1978 Body Snatchers movie. What was going on there? And it's all over the place. But Freddy is good. At least there's that. Freddy is good. Freddy is scary. I thought the transformation scene was pretty cool. It had some nice effects to it. Definitely one of the standout moments of the film. The pool party massacre was pretty good too, for what it was. Though I know there are some Freddy fans out there who would argue that the scene goes against everything that the series is supposed to be about, which is fair enough, but it is what it is. The music's not bad either, but you can't beat that classic Charles Bernstein score, which is so recognizable and synonymous with the series, and its absence here is pretty noticeable. And that's the thing. It's different, and if there's any key word I need to stress upon this movie, is that it's different. Whether or not it's a good kind of different, may be up for debate, but reflecting on it after countless viewings, as a fan of this series who will still give it a place in marathons, I find it tolerable. I don't hate it. I don't think it's an absolutely wretched piece of shit or anything. I appreciate what it's trying to go for. There are things to like about it. There is a value you can find in it if you're willing to probe for it. I guess it just depends on how deep you feel comfortable probing. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, that's my review. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you made it to the end, let me know what you think of this movie. I'm curious to hear people's thoughts. Is it as bad as everyone may say it is? Is it a little underrated? Does it deserve a little bit more love? Let me know. Comment below. So as always, comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching. We'll be continuing these reviews. Part 3 coming soon. Until then, thanks for watching. I'll see you later.